Not gonna lie, some punishments annoy the heck out of me as a submissive, but I kind of secretly like them because they work. I'm Alessandra from Dom Sub Living, and I'll show you how to use the best punishments that won't ruin your Dom Sub dynamic, but will make it even hotter. Welcome to the Dom Sub Living podcast. So, I've had my fair share of punishments over the years. I've cried, I've rolled my eyes over them, I've bratted harder because of them, but they also work. And if you're a dominant who wants more structure, or you're a submissive who's tired of the same old bend over and take it routine, this might be exactly what your dynamic needs. I do have a list of 30 other punishment ideas, and you can grab it for free at domsubliving.com/punish. I'll have a link for it in the description too. But today I'm walking you through the 5 Dom sub punishments I love and kind of hate because yes, they're uncomfortable, but they also build connection, they build obedience and real growth when they're done right. And trust me, you do not want to skip number 3 on this list because that one nearly wrecked our dynamic the first time we used it. And now I actually asked for it. Before we dive into all of the spicy stuff, though, let's get one thing clear. Not all punishments are created equal, and some are just plain manipulation in disguise. So you always want to make sure that punishments are consensual, that this is something you've discussed and agreed upon. So discuss what behaviors can get punishments, what the punishments actually look like, so that way everything is safe and everyone is on board. Now, a lot of people ask me, what warrants a punishment? Well, honestly, anything that the sub disobeys on or doesn't do, or a behavior that the dom doesn't like. But I always say that punishment is a form of discipline. It's not the only form of discipline. There's also rewards, there's praise, but discipline comes from the word disciple, and that means taught one. So, no matter what your discipline is, even if it is punishment, even if it is corporal and painful, if it's a physical punishment, it should still also teach something to the submissive, even if that lesson is don't ever do that again. So, punishments need to be intentional and not just a way for the Dom to vent their frustration. And this all matters because later, when I get to punishment idea number 4, you'll see exactly how a tiny shift in mindset changed everything for us. So let's start with one of the obvious ones. And so, punishment number 1 that I love to hate is a hard spanking. Now, spankings seem to be the go-to when it comes to punishments, and I get it. They're super fun, they're super sexy. We love them so much. In our dynamic, we do maintenance spankings every week to keep me in line. So we kind of got to a point where spankings weren't really working for us anymore. I'm also a huge masochist, so punishing me with any type of pain usually doesn't work. So, what we discovered is that punishment spankings still work if they are extremely hard. And I mean very hard, to the point where I am crying. And so, what this means is my Dom will, and again, this is all always consensual. I feel like I have to say that like a million times or I sound like a crazy person. But so what it means for us is my wrists and my feet will usually be in restraints. I'll be spread eagle because if I'm not, I will thrash around. I will try to block it with my hands, and I don't want to get hurt inadvertently while I'm trying to block it or hurt him by accident. So again, I have to always point out that this is completely consensual, but he will usually do about 5 spankings at this high intensity level, and he'll do it on the fleshly part of my body, so he's not damaging any bones or anything. And again, it's enough to make me cry. Usually, he doesn't have to do any of this because just the mention of a hard punishment spanking is enough to put the fear of God in me. And he never just does this on the fly. He's always giving me the consequence that if I don't do this or if this happens, then I'm going to get a hard punishment spanking. And I know exactly what he means when he says hard. So a lot of people ask me, well, how do you punish a masochist? And a lot of the punishments I'm going to be giving you in this episode don't involve corporal punishment or extreme pain like this, but I just wanted to bring out that you can still punish a masochist with pain, with spankings. You just might have to up the intensity level to a point where they can only take maybe five. To give you some contrast, when we're doing a maintenance spanking, he will usually go for a few minutes and it will kind of ebb and flow. We may take a little break or a breather. He'll build me up because we just really start really light and it's more just this exploration between the two of us. But a hard punishment spanking is completely different. I can only take a handful of them, literally, no pun intended, but his hand is hurting afterwards. Again, if you want to explore this with a masochist, obviously make sure it's consensual, but you may have to restrain their limbs so that they don't hurt themselves trying to move or block it as a reflex. Whew. Okay, let's switch from physical now to mental. So, punishment number two is writing assignments. So, sounds boring, right? But give me a pen and make me write 500 words on why I disrespected a protocol, and suddenly my hand is cramping and I am crying at the kitchen table. It kind of reminds me of that scene in the show Severance where Gemma had to write Christmas thank you cards nonstop for hours and hours as part of a sadistic psychological experiment. That's a great show. I highly recommend it. But this punishment, it works for me because it slows down my reactive behavior. I have to sit with what I did. I have to name it. I have to own it. And for someone like me who processes through words, this is excruciating in the best way though. And it doesn't have to be the classic writing lines like Bart Simpson writing on the chalkboard 100 times, something like, I will not talk back to my Dom. One time, my Dom gave me a journal prompt. I had to explain how my tone impacts our dynamic. And that one really hurt. I couldn't just text him, sorry, and slap a heart emoji on it and then just move on. I had to really think and reflect and admit where I was being defensive and dismissive. And I had to physically write it with pen and paper. Another time, he made me write about what submission means to me and how I had, in his words, stepped out of my role. That one turned into a full-blown identity crisis. So, yeah, I hate writing assignments, but I love them too. They work, they go deeper than just a sore bottom, they lead to growth. Now, some subs find writing punishments kind of patronizing, and that's totally valid. If it feels belittling to you and not in a good way, then skip it. But for us, it works. And one way to tell if it's working is to ask yourself, is your punishment helping the sub reflect, or is it just making them feel small? Okay, now this next one, I said I would never do it, but punishment number three is orgasm denial. It felt too manipulative, too psychologically cruel and too controlling. And I'm a very sexual person, so I don't like to be denied. But now it's one of the most effective punishments in our dynamic. So here's what changed. Instead of being about control, we reframed it as delayed gratification and behavior correction. So if I was bratty, disrespectful, or didn't complete my protocol, he might say, "No release for you until you get back on track." And let me tell you, that gets results. He doesn't overuse it, and that's the key. It's not the go to for everything. He uses it very sparingly for a short period of time, like a day, but it's never random. It's negotiated in advance. The first time we tried it, I absolutely melted down. I thought he was being mean. I didn't feel connected. I got extremely frustrated. I questioned everything, including our dynamic. But when we debriefed after I got my release finally, I realized it wasn't about denying me pleasure, it was about giving me a clear consequence. And in a way, it created more anticipation and more longing and more neediness and more submission. So it resets me because sometimes what I need isn't stimulation, it's stillness and learning to go without. And when he does end the punishment, the reconnection just feels so much more meaningful. Okay, hopefully that one wasn't too much for you, but let's talk about emotional punishments now. So, punishment number four, the punishment I love to hate is corner time or isolation, timeouts. I know it sounds childish, but stay with me. When I'm in the wrong headspace, putting me in a corner where I'm alone and quiet, away from stimulation, it can kind of wreck me, but in a helpful way. It gives me time to feel the weight of my behavior, to reflect, to soften and calm down, but it can also feel cruel if it's not handled with care. So let me tell you a story. The first time my Dom did it, he told me, go to the corner and kneel and face the wall. Don't talk. I'll come back to you when I'm ready. And I felt very abandoned. I felt rejected. It triggered old traumas that I had. And we had to unpack all of that. Now, if he uses corner time or tells me not to speak, there are clear boundaries around that. So he'll say, "This is a consequence, not a rejection, and I'll check in on you after 10 minutes." Or if he's just wanting no contact, he'll say, "You can speak to me in 1 hour." And yeah, I will usually start off being really angry, maybe even cry, but then I have the space to breathe and calm down and think. And it gives him space too, because a lot of times he'll use this punishment when maybe we're in a heated discussion or we've kind of just ran into this impasse where we can't agree on something. So he's needing a break too. So putting me in the corner or going no contact for a certain period of time is really beneficial for both of us. So is it a punishment? Well, yes, but it's also care. Now, let me say if your sub is neurodivergent or super anxious, this might not work. Or you just may need to shorten the time or give them a grounding object to hold on to, like a stuffed animal if they identify as a little. But just remember, this isn't about abandonment, it's about reflection with a container. Now, before we get to number 5, I want to remind you this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many punishment ideas depending on your different type of dynamic. Whether you're in a DS relationship, a master slave one, a femdom, a daddy dom baby girl, or something totally unique to you, you don't have to default to just spanking. So if you want over 30 different creative punishments you can start using right away, head to domsubliving.com/punish and grab my free list. That's domsubliving.com/punish. I'll link to it in the description too. All right, let's wrap up with one of my favorite punishments of all time because this one gets into your soul. Punishment number 5 that I love to hate is service-based punishments. This one's for the subs who say, just spank me already. Nope, you're not getting out of this. Try silent service instead. And that way it really drives home the lesson. So things like cleaning the dom's boots, folding their laundry, making their coffee exactly the way they like it, and doing it without saying a word and no talking back, no eye contact even, no sass, just obedience. It sounds easy, but it's not. One time I forgot a major protocol. It wasn't something small, it was big, like trust breaking big. I was supposed to text him where I was going to be and when I got there, and I didn't. And my dom said, "Well, when you come home, you're going to clean our toy chest inside and out in complete silence, not just straightening it up, but completely cleaning it." And it kind of gutted me because I wasn't allowed to do just my usual performance of repentance where I just kind of tried to act all pouty and flirty. Nope, he wasn't having any of that. So there was no drama, no whiny apologies, just action on my part was what he was looking for. And it was humbling, but it was also healing because it made me feel useful. It made me feel valuable, that I was still worthy of serving even when I had messed up so big. So, service based punishments turn mistakes into meaning. And if you're in a 24/7 dynamic, these are gold. They don't just correct behavior, they restore dignity. Because if you're a sub, what does your dom really want in that moment? Do they want revenge or do they want repair? Service is submission, even when it stings. So, those were the 5 Dom sub punishment ideas I love and hate. Now, comment or message me on social media and tell me, what punishment do you love or hate? And again, if you want to grab my free list of over 30 punishment ideas, go to domsubliving.com/punish or click the link in the description. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and until next time, keep embracing your power and pleasure through Dom Subliving.